Again, it's an honor to be with all of you this morning. This is an extremely challenging time for all of us. And one of the really interesting things, the Eden Alternative is an international organization. And this is the one time, and Dr. Bill Thomas brought this up, that really everyone in the world is going through the same thing with some variations at the same time. So that to me, even though it's a terribly challenging time, there's that togetherness, right? That this whole event is talking about. It's about community strong. The other thing that's so challenging, as you all know about this situation, is that we're caring for and supporting those that are most impacted by COVID. And really, I want to reiterate that what you all are doing is the most important work there is right now. You're supporting people that are most at risk. And because this situation, this pandemic, we all know what we need to be together, right? We know how that brings us a strength and brings us possibilities. And the very nature of this virus divides us. It's causing more loneliness and helplessness and boredom. It's put the medical model back in charge of things, in charge of our lives. And it's really brought the ugliness of ageism to the forefront. So this time, and that's what I want to spend a little bit of time with you on this morning, this time requires more intent, more focus on quality of life and well-being, and really balancing infection control and safety with having a life worth living. So thank you, before we get started, for all you're doing to keep the residents, elders, team members, and all of yourselves safe during this time. And also to just really recognize that, despite all of this challenge, the hardest situation our field has been through, really in its history, you persevere. And your organization, at a time when a lot of organizations can barely pick their heads up from the immediate needs that are going on, are focusing on what can we be doing better? How do we grow? How do we better? What I wanted to just share is how glad I am with all of you, how much we at the Eden Alternative appreciate everything you're doing during this extremely challenging time. With really COVID is interrupting really all the things that we know we need to be well, right? We need to be together, and COVID is interrupting our opportunities to do that in the ways that we have known how to do in the past. So I want to talk a little bit about, yes, this is a hard time, and this is an incredible opportunity for us to learn and grow. And I am not able to share my screen. So if the host can allow me to share my screen, I wanted to share some slides. So we'll give it just a minute here. Yes, so one of the best opportunities that there is to learn is through experience. And we are having, even though we really don't want to be going through this experience, we have a lot of opportunities to learn. And one of the big things that I really want to point out here is, Henry Ford said that when everything seems to be going against you, which it sure does feel like right now, remember that the airplane takes off against the wind, not with it. So we can use this time, these learnings that there are, if we pause for a moment, there's a lot we can learn right now to make organizations better, to grow as leaders, to better support elders and team members. And one of the biggest ways that we can do that is really looking at the domains of well-being. And I know many of you are very, very familiar with the Eden Alternative and what we're all about. And really, the Eden Alternative 10 principles are intended to get us to a place where everybody who's involved with your organization can experience well-being, okay? So that is the elders, that is team members, that's all of us as leaders, it's family members, it's everyone we come into contact with.
So different ways to really think about this is we are experiencing an impact on our own well-being right now. And this is a really powerful opportunity to really think about the way that elders can be impacted in an institutional setting, right? We're feeling the pain. A lot of us, we don't really feel the identity that maybe we had in the past. I've talked with a number of people who say, I'm a hugger. I am a person that is about being with people. And now that I can't be with people the way I used to, I don't know who I am anymore. Um, there are people have lost opportunities to grow and learn new things. Maybe you used to go to in-person art classes or yoga, and you might not be able to do those things right now. Their students, at least in the US, right, are really having their growth opportunities impacted. We've lost autonomy during this time, where again, a lot of things are focused on keeping us safe and keeping us well, but we still don't like to have other people tell us what to do, right? And that's a big thing is understanding the pain of losing autonomy, because that's the way a lot of older people live when they live in an institutional setting. An incredible impact on security right now for a lot of us, right? We don't know what tomorrow holds. And there's this really interesting connection between connectedness, which is the next domain, right? We need people to be well. It is part of our DNA that we need to be with other people. But when we're with other people, a lot of times our safety and security is impacted, right? If I go spend time with my friends in their yard, in their backyard, all of a sudden I feel stressed out. Like, was I far enough away from everyone? Same thing with the grocery store. Are other people doing what they need to do? So we're at this really interesting time when our security is being impacted. And the more we try to find some of these other domains and fill up those cups, it impacts security right now. We also, a lot of us have lost opportunities for meaning in our life and joy, which really joy comes from the other domains being met. And so this is a really important thing to focus on. And at the Eden Alternative, when we have our weekly meetings, we start with a learning circle. And the question we ask is, how are your domains of well-being this week? Where are you strong? Where are things lacking? And it's a really great way to be connected with each other, to know what each other needs. And also, this is a framework for not just saying, here, we can't do this right now. We can't do that right now. We can't bring people together for this reason because of the pandemic, but to ask the question, how can we? How can we fill up these cups during this time? So use the domains of well-being. It's a really powerful way to stay connected and really know what's going on with each other and how you can drive change and innovation. The other thing that we really ask people to pay attention to right now is ageism and ageism is prejudice and discrimination based on somebody's age. It hasn't gotten worse during the pandemic, but it's been brought to the forefront. It's all this stuff that has always been there. And it's really, really important that we pay attention to this and what the messages are telling us, and really trying to figure out ways to push back against that in our organizations and within ourselves. So common narrative in the media, everybody who's over 60 is at risk. Everybody who's over 70 is at risk. And yes, that's true. And when you make people a big homogenous group just because of their age, you stop seeing people as individuals, and you stop seeing the very different places that people are in their lives. So try working on pushing back against, yes, people are at risk and everybody is an individual, because this narrative, when we start stereotyping about people because of their age, it leads to other damaging effects. The other common narrative is that older people are frail, at-risk victims. Again, yes, at risk if you're a certain age and have certain underlying conditions, but elders don't have to always be in the victim role. And it's really, really important that we work with people to protect themselves rather than saying we are protecting the society's most frail, most vulnerable people. Because all those things keep, when we say that, that brings back that messaging that when we're older, we're just victims and we have no role to play in protecting ourselves and protecting those around us. There's a lot of us and them going on right now. And these are the narratives that have always been there in society about older people. But, it's somehow what's happening is when we make people who are older, the people that are impacted by the pandemic, it makes us feel more safe. But when we create those divisions of you are different than me because of your age, again, it's just perpetuating ageist beliefs. The stories that are out there, and this is important to think about, is the stories, at least in the US, and I've seen it from other countries as well, is the stories of organizations like hospitals and other organizations that care for people impacted by COVID. It's a lot of stories about heroes and stories about nursing homes. It's a lot of it is negative, and it really shows the value that society places on those of us that support older people versus organizations that support people who are younger. So it's all of this stuff is out there, and here's why it matters. This has an incredible impact on all of us. So all of these stories, again, are always there, and now they're just being brought to the forefront. But when we believe these negative things about aging, when the residents believe these negative things about aging, it leads to negative outcomes, right? There's all the research that shows if you believe that being old is all about being a victim, it's all about downhill, it's all about decline and having nothing to give back to the world, you have an experience with aging that is negative. And so you're more likely to develop cognitive challenges. You're less likely to recover if you have a debilitating accident. On average, people who believe positive things about aging live 7.5 years longer. So really important, stay focused on this and be aware of it and start pushing back against some of this messaging. It's also having a major impact on our team members. So there was research done by a university in the US where they studied social workers in senior living aging services fields. And what they found is that team members that had aging anxiety, less likely to be engaged in their jobs, less committed to their jobs, more likely to have burnout. And so really this whole ageism is impacting our ability to recruit and retain team members. So this is important. Pay attention to this, stay focused on this, and figure out ways in your organization that you can create some alternate narratives to things, because it really matters. The other thing is to remember, and we work with organizations all over the world, is that those that have done the work that you have all done are faring better throughout this pandemic. So when there is shared decision-making that's already happening in an organization, you don't have the crisis situations that other communities experience, where somebody at the top is making decisions that nobody else understands. Better decisions come from more people being involved in things. The more team members and elders are well known to each other, the better they are at getting through this time, because they're working together and people are a team, and there's trust. When there's community, a true sense of community, we're all in this together, there's transparency, and family members don't feel so anxious as they do in organizations that have a more institutional approach. And that collaboration is absolutely critical. One of the things that has become really clear is that this pandemic isn't just a leadership challenge. It's a community challenge, because one person cannot have all the answers in an unprecedented time. So the more we all work together and the more we all own this, the better off organizations are. And we see this, right? We've always known having consistent staffing, relationship-based staffing is better for well-being. It's also better for infection control. So this is the time right? When all of the things that we have been teaching and you all have been teaching in your organization and working on, all of those strengths in your organization are helping you get through this. So this is not a time to say, we'll work on person directed care and the Eden alternative later. It's critical that we stay focused on this. And there are so many lessons out there, but we have to ask and we have to listen. I am very guilty of assuming things about how people are feeling, especially during times of crisis. But when you start asking questions, you learn a lot of interesting things you might not know. And so one of the big lessons here is we always hear this from organizations we work with is you can't change a nursing home. You can't change senior living. It's so hard to drive change. And what we've learned, and that's true, but what we've learned through this pandemic is how quickly did your organization pivot to meet the needs, right? There has been incredible change that has happened, and we are capable of change. So celebrating those things that you have done, recognizing that, putting that in your toolbox for the future, guess what? We can drive change, and we are way more adaptable than we think that we are. The same thing with elders, right? There's that whole notion that when you're older, you can't learn new things. Older people can't learn technology. And what are we seeing? People are learning technology. And other things. And so it's really pushing back against a lot of the very false beliefs that we've had about what it means to be older. A lot of organizations are saying, hey, you know what? We've really gotten rid of silos during this time out of necessity. So in the past, maybe I work in the life enrichment department. I'm the business office manager. I'm in marketing. I do my job, you do your job. That doesn't work during this crisis. And so what we're hearing from organizations is everybody's working together and it's working so much better. So don't lose, if that's one of the things that's happening in your organization, don't lose that. Like we keep striving to get back to this old normal, and the old normal wasn't always so great either. So what are we going to learn and move forward with? We also, really, really important, there has been research during this pandemic that older people are less likely to experience that crushing anxiety that a lot of younger people are having during this pandemic. The longer we live, the more resilience we have. And so are we calling upon the wisdom of the elders, of the residents, to help us? We've heard so many stories of organizations where, team members who are really struggling, talking with a resident, and the resident sharing, I went through the polio outbreak, and this is how I got through it, and it was really scary. Or I went through terrible times in my family where we didn't have anything, and here's how we got through it. So making sure we're calling upon that wisdom and the resilience, because we need it now more than ever. Other really interesting things, there was a story out of Denmark that nursing home residents in Denmark were actually experiencing more well-being during this pandemic. They were sleeping better. They didn't need as many medications. We're hearing stories from other organizations where residents are saying, I kind of like not having all of these people I don't know in my home. I kind of like not being shuffled from big activity program to other activity programs. And it feels more like home now, which are things I never expected to hear. But make sure you're asking those questions and identifying as an organization and at your communities and even in your department, what's working right now that we want to carry forward with us. Okay. And also the meaningful purpose. We all need a reason to get up in the morning. And how can people that live in your communities be part of the solution? So there are organizations where residents are part of doing infection control. They're helping to problem solve these really challenging situations that are coming up. My parents live in a community, and there's a committee of residents that works with leadership on balancing safety and well-being. So they're working together rather than just having the executive director say, here's how things are going to be. Everyone's working together and experiencing purpose. And I'm sure you're doing a lot of these things already because you are an incredible organization. So here's the thing. The Eden Alternative teaches that in times of crisis, a leader's role is to calm the system. and we are in a crisis. And one of the things that is a really powerful approach as leaders is to realize that we don't always have to have all the right answers. And we can't have all the right answers, especially in a time like this. So focusing on having the right questions, right? So what questions do I need to be asking the people that I work with and the people that I'm supporting in the community to help us build more resilience and help us get through this? So how does life feel right now? I was assuming life felt terrible for everyone. And when I asked, when we started asking some questions, there are people that are feeling like some things are better right now, which never expected to hear. What's going well right now? What's not going well right now? What did we learn from the first wave that we can apply to, if hopefully there won't be, but a second wave of infections coming through? What domains of well-being are being most impacted right now? And more importantly, how can we, if you think of the different domains as cups that are either empty or full or somewhere in between, how can we fill these cups up? And again, the more voices at the table, the more perspectives, the more opportunity there is to really find innovative solutions. The great question for residents: how might you help someone else right now? And again, that pushes back against that whole, we are just here to serve you, but you have a meaningful role to play. How might you help a neighbor? How might you help a team member during this time? Another really good thing is, this is really hard. This is really hard. What do you think? That's just a great way to get other people's perspectives on things and acknowledge that as a leader, you don't always have all the answers. And a great thing to ask residents, again, also is, tell me about your experience in situations like this. Has there been a time in your life where you felt this way? Maybe it wasn't a pandemic, but where it felt scary. It felt like things were kind of out of control. Tell me about a time where something like this happened. What did you do? What lessons might you have that can help me or help others? And here's a question for you all is, again, do we really want to go back to the old normal? At least in the US, and I believe all of us as leaders in this field have a responsibility to make our organizations better, as well as raise the bar for our field in general. But what this pandemic has done is exposed every crack in the system. It's exposed all the things that we knew were wrong. So this is the most challenging time we've ever faced. And it's also, because it's at the forefront, is the biggest opportunity we've ever had to rethink, reevaluate, remake aging services. So I encourage you to, yes, feel what you're feeling. This is a very challenging time, but look for those opportunities for learning right now, and ways to apply that and bring everyone together to create a new future. So this is a great quote, and I think it applies so perfectly to why you're all together today and what you're all about, is people working together in a strong community with a shared goal and a common purpose can make the impossible possible, right? And we have seen that happen. And as I leave you today, I wish you an amazing conference together. You all are a great organization to be focusing on the future and really doing great work, and also looking at how do we even do better in the future and make the world a better place for elders and those that support them. So thank you for having me with you this morning. I'm sorry about the technical challenges, and I look forward to someday in the future seeing you all in person. Thank you.